Melania Trump was so criticized for using what turned out to be a portion of your speech. But do you have any sympathy? Because there are people around her creating things, and, you know, I have some sympathy for her. Do you understand how that might be sympathetic for what happened to her?
Yeah, that was tough.
So let me be as honest and clear as I possibly can. Donald Trump is the wrong president for our country. He has had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job, but he is clearly in over his head. He cannot meet this moment. He simply cannot be who we need him to be for us. It is what it is.
Michelle Obama walked onto the stage, looked directly into the camera, and said what many people felt had been left unsaid about Donald Trump. She didn't raise her voice or rely on dramatic moments. Instead, she spoke with a calm confidence and a sense of conviction that made every word hit harder. According to the narration, that message didn't just reach Trump. It also put a spotlight on Melania Trump, who had long been known for a quiet, composed public image and for keeping her distance from the constant political chaos surrounding her husband. For years, that reserved approach seemed to protect her from the controversy. But once Michelle openly challenged a narrative Trump had been pushing, the old strategy of staying silent and above the conflict no longer seemed to have the same effect.
That Obama isn't openly criticizing is Melania Trump.
Is the current First Lady, how do you think she is doing in defining who she is?
You know, one of the things you learn as a former, it's like, I don't judge what a current is doing, you know? So I'd prefer not to, you know, speak on what she's doing versus what I did.
And although Obama hosted Trump for a brief welcome tea at the White House after the election, telling her that she was available for advice anytime should Trump need her, Obama's phone has remained silent.
I know that Laura Bush reached out to you and said, if you need any help, I'm a phone call away.
Yep.
You wrote about how, and have talked about how you extended that same courtesy to Melania Trump. Has she reached out to you and asked for any help?
No, she hasn't.
That sense of distance no longer came across as graceful or sophisticated. Instead, it began to look more like avoiding the situation, and the carefully built public image started to lose its strength. Little by little, the cracks became impossible to ignore, and you could almost watch that polished image come apart in real time. If you support Michelle Obama over Donald Trump, be sure to subscribe because you're in the right place. And don't forget to leave a like on the video. Michelle didn't create the arguments people have made against Trump over the years. She simply brought them together in a clear, direct way. For a long time, she chose patience, hope, and restraint. Even while the other side continued throwing out whatever messages or attacks they believed would stick.
I hope that you'll forgive me if I'm a little angry that we are indifferent to his erratic behavior, his obvious mental decline, his history as a convicted felon, a known slumlord, a predator found liable for sexual abuse, all of this while we pick apart Kamala's answers from interviews that he doesn't even have the courage to do, y'all.
Every now and then, Michelle Obama steps onto a national stage and says something that cuts through all the noise. She's done it when talking about empathy. She's done it when speaking about leadership. And she's done it when explaining how power can become petty when it's driven by fear instead of principle. According to the narration, when she criticized what she described as Trump's use of racial politics and turned his own words back on him, the moment immediately stood out. It wasn't presented as just another sharp comeback. It was meant to hold up a mirror, reflecting what the narration describes as a style of politics that tries to present smallness and division as signs of strength.
When making life or death, war or peace decisions, a president just can't pop off or lash out irrationally. No, we need an adult in the White House. So if a candidate is erratic and threatening, if a candidate traffics in prejudice, fears, and lies on the campaign trail, if a candidate thinks that not paying taxes makes you smart, or that it's good business when people lose their homes,
If a candidate regularly and flippantly makes cruel and insulting comments about women, about how we look, how we act, well, sadly, that's who that candidate really is. Because we know that being president isn't anything like reality TV. It is not an apprenticeship. And it is not just about fiery speeches or insulting tweets. It's about whether someone can handle the awesome responsibility of leading this country.
It raised a simple question that was hard to ignore. If this is your vision for America, then why be afraid of Americans? According to the narration, that's the kind of statement you can't silence just by being louder. It stays in people's minds, carries into the next news cycle and the one after that, because it connects with what many see as the core issue being discussed. Then the focus shifts to Melania Trump. The narration argues that for years her public approach has been built on staying quiet, appearing polished, and speaking as little as possible. It presents her image as someone who seemed too composed and too distant to get pulled into political conflict. Supporters have often described her as private, reserved, and someone who prefers to stay above the daily political battles.
That's fake news. When you say that, darling, that's fake news.
Well, why
I
would
don't
the
go to
Department
war.
of Defense?
Listen, be quiet. Listen. You don't listen. You never listen. That's why you're second rate. We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our cities. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense.
Mr. President, how is your
Are you ready?
The president and his allies are trying to tap into that frustration and distract from his breathtaking failures by giving folks someone to blame other than them. They're stoking fears about Black and brown Americans, lying about how minorities will destroy the suburbs, whipping up violence and intimidation, and they're pinning it all on what's been an overwhelmingly peaceful movement for racial solidarity. It's true. Research backs it up. Only a tiny fraction of demonstrations have had any violence at all. So what the president is doing is once again patently false. It's morally wrong. And yes, it is racist. But that doesn't mean it won't work.
According to narration, being private is not the same thing as standing on principle. It argues that when the cameras are on, the issues have real consequences. Staying silent becomes a decision that people are free to judge. The narration also says that audiences tend to remember the moments that leave the biggest impression. It points to Melania Trump's anti-bullying campaign, which was introduced with polished messaging while her husband continued posting insults online, as a contrast that drew criticism. It also recalls her visit to a migrant children's facility in Texas, where the jacket she wore became the center of widespread controversy. The narration further references her Republican National Convention speech, noting that similarities to another speech quickly became a major story after side-by-side comparisons spread across the internet.
Thinking about this, it has shaken me to my core in a way that I couldn't have predicted.
Michelle Obama delivering a blistering rebuke of Donald Trump and his crude comments about women.
It would be dishonest and disingenuous to me to just move on to the next thing like this was all just a bad dream. This is not something that we can ignore. It's not something we can just sweep under the rug as just another disturbing footnote in a sad election season.
She's weighing in with an unusually pointed and personal denunciation of Trump, a call to arms for women, men, and, she said, basic human decency.
We all know that if we let Hillary's opponent win this election, then we are sending a clear message to our kids that everything they're seeing and hearing is perfectly okay. We are validating it.
A coordinated message with Hillary Clinton.
I hope you will see Michelle Obama's speech today in New Hampshire. And once again, she not only made a compelling and strong case about the stakes in the election, but about who we are as Americans.
The narration also points to public moments where body language seemed to speak louder than any official statement, including a widely discussed scene on an airport tarmac where one hand reached out and the other pulled away. It emphasizes that these weren't presented as conspiracy theories, but as real, televised events that millions of people watched and remembered. According to the narration, those moments became part of the public's lasting memory of an administration it describes as placing more attention on spectacle than substance. From there, it argues that when Michelle Obama stepped forward and framed the conversation around values and accountability, the carefully crafted image surrounding Melania Trump could no longer avoid questions about the gaps between that public image and those highly visible moments.
For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. I want to know, who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs?
The narration asks a series of pointed questions about the gap between public messages and public actions. It questions what it means to promote kindness while standing beside behavior that many critics describe as cruel. It also asks what it means to encourage people to be their best selves while sharing the stage with someone who publicly mocks others by name. It raises the question of what it means to visit children in difficult circumstances if the moment ends up looking more like a photo opportunity than a sincere act of compassion. The narration acknowledges that people can argue those moments were misunderstood or blame the media, critics, or outside interpretations, but it says those explanations don't change what viewers believe they witnessed. It concludes that when someone like Michelle Obama openly puts those concerns into words in front of a national audience, the impact becomes much harder to dismiss.
With your support on November 5th, you know what's nasty to me? Michelle Obama. I always tried to be so nice and respectful. Oh, she opened up a little bit of a box. She opened up a little bit of something. Oh, she was nasty. Ooh. Shouldn't be that way. That was a big mistake that she made. With your support on November 5th, we will achieve success that no one can imagine. We will have the strongest economy, the most secure borders, the safest cities, the most powerful military, the best trade deals. We will dominate the frontiers of science, medicine, business, technology, and space.
Is that it looks like the federal government, which is entirely controlled by the Republican Party, is going to shut down in about 20 minutes. Anything?
According to the narration, once those issues are addressed openly, the familiar explanations begin to lose their impact and sound more like repeated talking points than convincing answers. It also argues that part of the story has always been tied to the public image of the Trump marriage itself. The narration describes Donald Trump as someone who dominates attention, constantly creates conflict, and presents those confrontations as signs of strength. In contrast, it portrays Melania Trump as someone who stays mostly in the background, appearing only occasionally, especially during the administration's most controversial moments, just enough to remind people she is still part of the picture. The narration concludes that for a long time, this public dynamic worked in their favor. Trump commanded the headlines while Melania is quiet. Carefully managed image preserved an air of mystery.
For the people who have to go there and stand by the person running for president?
No, not really. No, because if, you have to be, in it. If you're in it, and if you don't agree, you should have agreed before they ran.
She also appeared in this hilarious sketch.
If you got stuck on a desert island with one famous person, who'd you pick?
Oh, I'd pick the president. How about you?
Beyonce.
According to the narration, an air of mystery can only last so long when the conversation shifts from politics to basic questions of character and decency. It argues that once the focus is no longer on policy, but on personal values, the people closest to the center of the controversy will eventually be asked where they stand. The narration suggests that if the response continues to be silence or uncertainty, people will naturally draw their own conclusions, and those conclusions are not always favorable. It then turns the discussion over to the audience, asking which public moment changed their opinion the most. Was it the jacket that sparked widespread criticism, the widely discussed hand pull-away moment, the convention speech that drew plagiarism accusations, or the periods when Melania remained largely out of public view while the campaign continued delivering messages about who belonged and who did not? The narration invites viewers to reflect on which of those moments had the biggest impact on their perspective.
Too many are treating this as just another day's headline, as if our outrage is overblown or unwarranted, as if this is normal, just politics as usual. This is disgraceful. It is intolerable. And it doesn't matter what party you belong to.
All this as hacked emails from the Clinton campaign continue to muddy the waters, portraying the painstaking calculations behind nearly every move, even sending out a tweet signed by Hillary Clinton herself.
The narration encourages viewers to share the moment that changed their opinion in the comments, saying those public events deserve to be remembered rather than forgotten or dismissed. It argues that looking back at those moments helps people recognize what it describes as a consistent pattern instead of treating each incident as an isolated controversy. The narration then shifts to the topic of hypocrisy, not as a slogan or political catchphrase, but as something it believes can be seen through repeated actions over time. It argues that promoting an anti-bullying campaign while standing beside behavior that critics describe as bullying creates a contradiction. It also questions the message sent when someone presents themselves as an advocate for children, yet a humanitarian visit becomes overshadowed by actions or choices that many people viewed as insensitive.
Melania going on her own in her office saying, it's just a jacket. It's anything but just a jacket.
So in other words, just so I understand this, that was an attention-grabbing stunt that she intentionally did because she knew it would get the press's attention.
Right, and I don't think she realized that it would get the negative attention.
How could she not know that a jacket that says she doesn't care as she goes to see children wouldn't get
Because
negative?
the interpretation that I took from it, again, just from someone knowing her, was, oh my God, Melania, why didn't your office just come out and say, I don't care what liberals say, I don't care what conservatives say, I don't care what anybody says. I'm doing the right thing and I'm going to the border. That's the messaging, because I do think deep in her heart, that was there. But it got so convoluted, and nobody communicates, nobody really cares to help her cover. What's entirely wrong. Doesn't matter. The reality is she wore it to get attention. How I perceived it was because of how I viewed her as
The narration continues by arguing that if someone presents themselves as a symbol of integrity at a national convention, but the moment people remember most is the controversy over how closely the speech resembled someone else's, that creates what it describes as hypocrisy. It says the goal is not to reopen old headlines for the sake of controversy, but to explain why Michelle Obama's remarks on live television resonated with so many people. According to the narration, she didn't lower the conversation or rely on personal attacks. Instead, she brought it into the open and forced people to focus on the bigger questions. The narration concludes that her message reminded the country that leadership is not defined by branding, image, or carefully staged photographs. It argues that leadership is ultimately measured by the choices a person makes, both when the cameras are watching and when no one is looking.
Probably, I have to admit, as much as we would all love to know, you're right about that. Michelle also opened up, though, about being the first black first lady. Here's what she said about that.
So there were people who didn't know what a black woman was and sounded like, and so I knew that was going to be a challenge, that I'd have to earn my grace. People called me Barack's baby's mama, accused me of not loving my country, told me I was angry. And that was the first time I really experienced someone taking my voice and balling it up and distorting it. Like, this isn't me. Wait, people. This isn't who I am.
According to the narration, Melania Trump's decisions over the years ultimately shaped how many people viewed her. It argues that those choices place greater emphasis on appearances and accountability, distance rather than clarity, and silence at moments when, in the narrator's view, speaking up could have made a meaningful difference. The narration also suggests that today's public is far more aware of how political images are managed than many public figures assume. It argues that voters can recognize the difference between someone who chooses not to engage with pointless controversy and someone who simply avoids taking a position when it matters. According to the narration, that distinction has become increasingly difficult for audiences to overlook.
My decision to skip the inauguration, you know, what people don't realize, or my decision to make choices at the beginning of this year that suited me were met with such ridicule and criticism. Like, people couldn't believe that I was saying no for any other reason, that they had to assume that my marriage was falling apart.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
it's like, while I'm here really trying to own my life and intentionally practice making the choice that was right for me, and it took everything in my power to not do the thing that was right, or that was perceived as right, but do the thing that was right for me. That was a hard thing for me to do.
The narration argues that many people can sense when neutrality becomes part of someone's public image, especially during moments when they believe a clear position is needed. It says that's why the word collapse is used not to describe a person falling apart, but to describe the loss of the protective image that had been carefully maintained for years. According to the narration, staying above the controversy only works as long as no one directly addresses the controversy itself. It argues that Michelle Obama changed that by speaking calmly and plainly, without shouting or relying on insults. Instead, she presented her argument in a measured way, as if simply having an honest conversation with the public. The narration concludes that once she did that, Melania Trump's silence was no longer viewed as an elegant personal style, but became something many people began to question.
And his willful mismanagement of the COVID crisis is just one example of his negligence. As a Black woman who has, like the overwhelming majority of people of color in this nation, done everything in my power to live a life of dignity and service and honesty, the knowledge that any of my fellow Americans is more afraid of me than the chaos we are living through right now, well, that hurts. It hurts us all. It is a heaviness that sits on our hearts. So I want to appeal for some empathy here too. I want everyone who is still undecided to think about all those folks like me and my ancestors. The moms and dads who worked their fingers to the bone to raise their kids right. The teenagers who wear hoodies while working hard to get their diplomas. The millions of folks who look like me and fought and died and toiled as slaves and soldiers and laborers to help build this country. Put yourselves in our shoes for just a moment. Imagine how it feels to wake up every day and do your very best to uphold the values that this country claims to hold dear. Truth, honor, decency, only to have those efforts met by scorn, not just by your fellow citizens, but by a sitting president.
The narration suggests there are different ways to explain Melania Trump's silence. It could have been self-preservation, a deliberate strategy, or simply genuine indifference. Whatever the reason, it argues that the public ultimately judged the outcome rather than the motive. According to the narration, once the conversation changed, the carefully managed image no longer felt as solid as it once had. It compares that moment to a stage set where the curtain is pulled back and the audience suddenly notices what had been hidden behind the scenes. The narration says that after hearing Michelle Obama calmly lay out her argument, the public conversation was never quite the same. It then invites viewers to share their own perspective, asking whether Michelle's live remarks were the moment they felt the image truly cracked, or whether that happened much earlier, perhaps during the controversy over the convention speech or the widely criticized jacket. It encourages people to leave thoughtful, honest comments and continue discussion, ending with a reminder for Instagram viewers to follow the page for more content.